New York City, 1896. Two men are sitting together in a laboratory on Fifth Avenue. One is the most brilliant electrical engineer the world has ever produced. The other, a Hindu monk who has just spent years traveling the world teaching Vedantic philosophy to anyone willing to listen. They shouldn't have anything in common. One speaks the language of volts and frequencies and electromagnetic fields. The other speaks the language of Brahman, Atman, Prana and Akasha. And yet, the engineer leans forward and tells the monk, "I think we're talking about the same thing." I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation. To be the recipient of such teachings would be just beyond. Welcome back to Quantum Awareness. Sound is emptiness, emptiness is sound, where we explore the fascinating intersection of quantum mechanics, neuroscience, and Buddhist philosophy. I'm QP, your quantum perceptor. Now, before we dive in, if what we explore here resonates with you, a follow and a like costs nothing. And it's just the frequency the universe needs to give you and others like you more of this. And I'd be very grateful. He was a visionary of exemplary proportions. Nikola Tesla was way ahead of his time. Perhaps even what some Buddhists might call a tulku or a high lama. Only that he was reborn in the West. Tesla gave us alternating current. He gave us the radio. Yeah, it was him, not Marconi. That argument was settled a long time ago by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1943, the year Tesla died. He imagined wireless transmission of energy across the planet. He spoke of tapping into the resonance of the Earth itself in order to manifest this. But what most people don't talk about, and what gets left out of every documentary and every car brand and every Halloween costume, is what Tesla actually believed the universe was made out of. One of my favorite Tesla quotes is, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." If this doesn't excite the particles in you, the modern seeker or Buddhist, then nothing will. Energy, frequency, vibration. Not particles, not matter, not atoms bumping into each other in a void. The universe for Tesla was fundamentally about how things move, oscillate, and resonate. It was relational and interdependent. It was alive with pattern. Sound familiar? It sure should. Can you hear my Buddhist ears focusing in on something transformative here? In 1890, Swami Vivekananda came to the West. He famously addressed the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago in 1893. He stunned the audience. He then spent years traveling, teaching, meeting scientists, philosophers, really anyone who would engage seriously with Vedantic thought. And then he met Tesla. What impressed me the most and what I find extraordinary is that Tesla had already arrived at some of the ideas before he met Vivekananda. Their shared meeting only seemed to strengthen and cement his resolve that Western science and Vedantic or Eastern teachings were actually talking about the very same thing. Like I said, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall listening to them theorize together. Vivekananda was teaching the ancient Vedantic concepts of prana, the life force, the animated energy of the universe, and Akasha, the primordial substance, the field in which everything arises. Tesla was so taken with these ideas that he actually attempted to express them mathematically. Oh, I love him. He wanted to write equations for prana and Akasha. Think about that for a moment. One of the greatest scientific minds in history was trying to find the mathematics of what the rishis and mahasiddhas had been pointing out for 1,000 years. Now, unfortunately, he didn't succeed, but the fact that he tried tells us everything about the kind of man that he was. Here's the most important thing Tesla ever wrote, and I want you to really sit with this one. All perceptible matter comes from a primary substance, or tenuity beyond conception, filling all space. The Akasha, or luminous ether, which is acted upon by the life-giving prana, or creative force, calling into existence, in never-ending cycles, all things and all phenomena. What is this? Is this quantum foam? Is this the zero-point field? The seething vacuum that physics tells us underlines all matter? Or is it something that precedes even those descriptions? something that physics is still approaching from one side while Vivekananda was approaching from the other. The simple beauty in this one sentence, connecting both worlds, not just on a literary level as he uses both English and Sanskrit terminology, but on a level of understanding unsurpassed by most, if not all, minds of his time. My take, from my Buddhist understanding, which is very, very close to Advaita Vedanta, is that the Akasha, the luminous ether, what we might call mind, or perhaps consciousness itself, what Tesla called the primary substance, what Vivekananda called the Akasha, in Tibetan Vajrayana we might simply call it Shi, the ground. Not ground as in the dirt beneath your feet, ground as in the primordial nature of mind itself. Nung me zem, where sem mind is not your thinking mind, not your mood and not your memory, but the primordial awareness that was never born and will never cease. The surface everything appears on, the sky all clouds arise within. Prana acting on Akasha, creative force acting on primordial awareness in never-ending cycles, all things and phenomena arising. Does this not sound exactly like dependent origination? Like the Mahamudra teaching that all phenomena arise within awareness and dissolve back into it? Like the quantum field from which all particles briefly emerge and return to? And when physics describes the quantum vacuum, this seething generative nothingness from which all particles arise and into which they dissolve, are they measuring the surface of something that contemplatives have been diving into for millennium? Now let me bring in something I've been sitting on for a long time. It's a formulation that I arrived at with two friends on X, and it's an old lost thread that I've never been able to find again. So boys, if you're out there, you know who you are. Send me some C. C equals E equals mc squared. Now, before the physicists among you close the app, let me say this clearly. What follows is not physics. It's poetic compression. It's a way of holding ideas together that points at something real without claiming to prove it in a laboratory. Hold it the way you hold a koan, not too tightly. Now, what this means is that consciousness C is a fundamental aspect of the universe, present in all forms of matter, from the smallest particles to the most complex organisms. This is Panpsychism, the view that consciousness is not exclusive to sentient beings but is pervasive throughout the cosmos, imbuing all matter with some degree of subjective experience. C equals E aligns with the notion that consciousness is a form of energy that permeates the universe. And by framing consciousness as a fundamental force akin to energy, we are challenged to reevaluate our understanding of the relationship between mind and matter. And just as energy can be converted into mass and vice versa, E equals mc squared, thank you Einstein, consciousness in Panpsychism and in Vajrayana Buddhism can be seen as a dynamic process that transforms and manifests in various forms. It's not produced by matter, expressed through it. Now, here's where I want to slow down, because there's something hiding inside this equation that I don't want us to miss. Notice that the equal signs run both ways. C equals E equals mc squared. There's no arrow here, no beginning, no end. You can enter the circle anywhere, from mass, from energy, from consciousness, and you arrive at the same place. This is not cause and effect. This is not post hoc ergo propter hoc. This caused that, sequentially, one billiard ball striking another. This is mutual arising. This is pratityasamutpada dressed in the language of physics. Energy, the verb of the universe, not a thing, but a doing, the ceaseless movement between awareness and form. But then ask yourself, are consciousness and mass subjective and objective? Knower and known? Inside and outside? That's precisely the dualism that both Advaita Vedanta and Mahamudra say is the fundamental confusion, the illusion, samsara itself. Because from the Mahamudra view, mass, the apparent objective world, is the display of consciousness. It arises within awareness. The mountain doesn't exist independently of the mind that perceives it, not in some solipsistic way, but in the deeper sense that subject, object, and action co-arise. Neither one has independent existence. And the physics already knows this. Quantum mechanics destabilized the clean subject-object split a long time ago with the double-slit experiment. The observer is not separate from the observed and the act of knowing. The boundary between the knower and the known turns out to be, well, negotiable. So the equation doesn't have an inside or an outside. C equals E equals mc squared. The circle has no beginning because there's no one standing outside it, looking in. Energy is not the verb between two nouns. Energy is the recognition that the nouns were never separate. Consciousness, mass, energy. Not three things. One reality known three ways. The physicist measures two of them, and the contemplative dives into the third. Tesla's Akasha is the field, Prana is the creative force, and in Buddhist terms, awareness is the ground, gzhi in Tibetan, and phenomena are its display. Different vocabularies, but it's the same universe. Tesla's energy, frequency, and vibration. Say it slowly. Energy, mass, consciousness. Subject, object, action. SOA, the irreducible structure of experience, not as a sequence, not as cause and effect, as a circle, as mutual arising, as one reality known three ways. The physicist measures two of them, and the contemplative dives into the third. Tesla wasn't doing Buddhism. He wasn't doing Vedanta. He was doing physics, and he arrived at the same place. Now, here's something that puzzles me, and I've been puzzling over it for years. If we as humans have been talking about this for thousands of years, why have we not come to any conclusions? Why is there no consensus between these two worlds, between East and West? And I have several ideas as to why. Is it simply our hubris, our pride, our dogma, that Western society cannot reconcile that it's not the smartest or the wisest tradition on the planet? Is our understanding of Eastern philosophy still so tainted by the Catholic missionaries' interpretations of Vedic and Hindu and Buddhist texts in the 17th and the 18th centuries that positioned Buddhists as nihilists, wanting to lose themselves in nothingness, disappearing into some black hole? Did we lose most of the ancient knowledge in the burning of the libraries of Nalanda in India and Alexandria in Egypt due to religious wars? And is it simply taken us 1,000 years to catch up? Or is it simply that we've not sat down and discussed the possibilities in open enough spaces or forums? I don't have a simple answer, but I do have a suspicion. I think we've not had enough Tesla moments. Enough moments where the scientist and the monk sit down together, without agenda, and discover that they've been describing the same elephant from two different sides of the room. And that's what this podcast is. That's what we're doing here, every episode. Now, I want to pause and ask a question I genuinely find fascinating. Are consciousness and awareness the same thing? In English, we use them interchangeably, but in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, in the languages that were actually built to describe these states, there are distinctions that English simply doesn't have the resolution for. So let me just ask, and I really want you to sit with each one. Am I aware that I am conscious? Am I conscious that I am conscious? Am I conscious that I am aware? Am I aware that I am aware? And then the one that stops me every time. Am I aware of that which is conscious? That last question's not like the others. The first four are still the mind examining itself, turning awareness back on itself 1 degree at a time. But the fifth is pointing at something the conceptual mind cannot follow. The witness of the witness. The awareness that is aware of awareness itself. In Mahamudra, this is not a philosophical position. This is the pointing out instruction. This is your Lama looking at you and saying, that, right there, that which is reading these words right now, that which is listening to the podcast right now, that which heard the question before the answer even arose. I've been asked many, many times what that feels like from the inside. The texture, it's soft, easy, expansive, especially when my Lama was there to open and hold the space for me and the thousands of other students with me. The French have a term I keep returning to, conscience panoramique, panoramic consciousness. Wide, open, unobstructed. Present without grasping, aware without an object. I think Tesla had this. You can feel it in his words. He wasn't describing the universe from a distance. He was in it, awed by it, feeling its aliveness pulse through him. His energy, frequency, and vibration weren't just a scientific observation. It was a love letter. That's conscious panoramique. That's what practice cultivates. And that's what I believe Tesla stumbled into, whether through the sheer intensity of attention, through the pointing out instructions of Swami Vivekananda, or perhaps he simply arrived in this life already knowing it. And maybe that's not so important right now. In Vajrayana Buddhism, a school of Tibetan Buddhism known for its esoteric teachings and advanced meditation practices, offers profound insights into the nature of consciousness. According to Vajrayana teachings, consciousness is not limited to individual beings, but is interconnected with all phenomena in the universe. And this resonates deeply with Panpsychism's premise that consciousness is ubiquitous and present in all aspects of reality. In Vajrayana Buddhism, consciousness is seen as radiant clarity, the clear light of mind that underlines all experiences and perceptions, transcending individual identity and ego. And this is supported by the Sitramatra, the mind only, or the non-dual perspective. Mind only means that everything that happens, what we see, what we do, the universe itself, all happen in mind. Now, whether I'm doing prostrations or poa, every single meditation that I do is a doorway to mind. All I have to do is walk through. And I don't want to stop with just that, because in Tibetan Buddhism, we have 3 words that deserve our attention. 3 views of emptiness. Tongpanyi in Tibetan, Shunyata in Sanskrit. They are Rangtong, Shentong, and Daetong. Now, Rangtong is empty of self-nature. Many see this as nihilistic. The Sakyupas and the Gelugpas, they tend to support this view. Then we have Shentong, emptiness with something on top. The idea that because emptiness can only be experienced, the experience is part of reality. And this was debated as being too materialistic, and the Nyingmapas tended to favor this. But my Lama always talks about Daetong. De comes from Deva and means bliss. So Daetong is the great joy that arises from emptiness. And this happens when mind recognizes its own radiant space, its own frequency, energy, and vibration. Perhaps these should not be seen as competitive ideas, but as steps on the way. When Tesla says energy, frequency, vibration, I can only think of joy as the highest energy, frequency, and vibration. I hope he had a really good glimpse of mind, Both Panpsychism and Vajrayana Buddhism share a holistic understanding of consciousness as a pervasive force that transcends individual beings and the universe. All these perspectives challenge dualistic views of mind and matter, pointing towards a more integrated understanding of reality that acknowledges the intrinsic relationship between consciousness and the universe. Tesla was pointing at this. Vivekananda was pointing at this. The Buddha was pointing at this. Different fingers, same moon. Does Tesla inspire you? I hope so. He inspires me enormously, and not because of the inventions, though they are extraordinary, but because of the courage it takes to stand at the edge of what science knows and to say, there's something more here, something the equations aren't capturing yet, and something that the monks have been describing for millennia that we are only now finding in the mathematics. Tesla died alone in a hotel room in New York, deeply in debt, his patents largely stolen or disputed. The world he tried to give us, free wireless energy for everyone, was suppressed because it couldn't be monetized. But the ideas cannot be suppressed. Energy, frequency, vibration, Akasha, Prana, consciousness as the ground of all things. Those are still here, still alive, still waiting for us to catch up. And speaking of energy, if this episode has given you a new perspective, new energy, please take a moment to share a little back with me and send me a follow or a like on whatever platform you're listening on. Energy needs to move in a circle between the nouns. So today we've sat with Tesla and Vivekananda in that New York laboratory. We felt the electricity of two traditions recognizing each other across the table. We've looked at C equals E equals mc squared, the idea that consciousness is not produced by the universe, but is woven into it. That energy and awareness are not two different things, but one process seen from different angles. And we've asked the question that has puzzled me for years. If we've known this for thousands of years, why are we still arguing about it and talking about it? But now here's where this really gets personal. If consciousness is energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed, then what happens to your consciousness when you die? Next time on Quantum Awareness, we're going there. All the way there. We look at the net of Indra, one of the most beautiful and radical ideas in all of Buddhist philosophy. We look at what early Christianity actually believed before certain councils decided otherwise. And we look at what modern physics says about information, energy, and whether anything is ever truly lost. And the answers might surprise you, or it might confirm something you've always quietly known. This is QP. Sound is emptiness. Emptiness is sound. Every question about consciousness is consciousness asking about itself. Catch you next time.